Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a little bit late, but man, I had this workout yesterday that I don't know what it did, but it was a little bit more intense than normal, and it just kicked my metabolism into overdrive. I wake up so hungry, so I wanted to make sure I had really eaten enough before I started today's stream. So that put me back about 5 minutes. But hey, it's okay. We've got some news coming up here we got the jobless claims, and we also get like PCE prices, which is super important. So I am just going to skip well, actually, we can go through the charts really quickly, can't we? Charts. E-mini pretty much unchanged from yesterday. Treasuries as well. Oil, slightly higher. Gold taken off.
1 minute remaining now. I'll be reading the US
Same with
GDP
silver.
quarter-on-quarter advance for the second quarter.
Yeah, covered down a little bit. And I think I can't see something's wrong with my dollar, guys. What the heck? Let's just check here really quick. Database management. Yeah, it's time to roll over things. I thought so. Okay, so here we go. So for PCE, we're looking for a reading of 6.1.
Ten seconds.
Oh, and the advanced GDP is 8.5. That's what we're looking for. So the treasuries are definitely pulling for it.
6.5%, that is lower than the forecast of
Okay, advanced GDP is lower than expected.
The US initial jobless claims coming out at 400K, which is higher than the forecast of 384.
And unemployment slightly higher than expected.
Coming out at 3.269 million, 3.269 million, higher than the forecast of 3.183 million.
Cool. Cool. Quite an iceberg here at 11. So taking advantage of that. Good morning, Ortega. Sergio. Oh, you finally get a day off from work, Keller? Good for you.
The US jobless claims full report is available on the Financial Juice newsfeed if you'd like to read. We are also seeing the USDA release of the US net soybean exports coming out now.
So let's see, right? Surprise! I don't have the price index number yet.
300K. US wheat exports net sales at 515.
So again, unemployment claims was 400,000 versus 382, and advanced GDP was 6.5 versus an expected 8.5. So the treasuries are moving up on that.
Sales at minus 115.200K.
Looks like they got through that 10.5 area and just shot through.
Of the US core PCE prices advanced.
Take my eye off of it for 5 seconds.
Prices advanced, and the US GDP deflator advanced. US GDP deflator advance coming out at 6.1%, 6.1% higher than the forecast of 5.4%. We are still waiting on the US PCE prices advanced and the US core PCE prices advanced.
Come on. There we go.
The US GDP deflator advance coming out now.
Sergio says his expectations for today are bearish.
6.1%. That is higher than the forecast of 5.4%. US PCE
The thing is, the drama earlier in the week was over. Was a lot of it had to do with Asia stuff, right?
6.1%,
and it sounds like that the Asian authorities, the Chinese authorities, rather the Asian authorities, good grief, the Chinese authorities really put some effort in to try and assuage those fears or whatever.
Figures came in there.
So
also the initial jobless claims figures as well coming in. So just
I'm not so sure there's any reason to be bearish per se. And you know, the E-mini's still just hanging out around 4,400. Now the news that we just got was, it was kind of bearish and it kind of wasn't, because it was kind of saying, well, the growth has not been as good as we thought, which could require repricing, but it also means more free money. Yay! So
taking a look at the
I'm not sure that was really actually bearish.
Quarter on quarter,
You know what I mean?
revised to 6.3% from 6.4%. US initial jobless claims prior revised to 424k from 419k. Seeing the prior revised on the US continued jobless claims to 3.262 million from 3.236 million. Also, the US core PCE quarter on quarter prior revised to 2.7% from 2.5%. And the report for the US GDPs for second quarter is out on the Financial Juice newsfeed.
So worried about that. Wouldn't mind picking up another at 11, but I don't want to leverage up too much there. Earnings reports seem to be mostly positive, though, so maybe interplay between earnings and the charts will eat away my bearishness and make me more bullish. Well, the thing that's been interesting about that is that even though the earnings have been relatively good, companies haven't necessarily been rewarded for it, have they? I mean, really, they care a lot about the what do we say, the guidance that they give, right? Like Apple, for instance, pretty good quarter, much better than expectations, but the guidance that they gave for quarter 3 was poor, and so they got hammered for it. Two U.S. data misses will amplify discussions on the extent to which supply-side issues, labor and beyond, are holding back economic growth and continued sharp labor market improvement, says Mohammed Al-Rain. It's almost like you have to look at both the demand and supply sides of the equation when considering stimulus. Sure enough, they completely pull at 12. Not surprised. McWell says, good morning. Hey, welcome back. How have you been? Well, I tell you what, there's sure is a lot of shuffling going on here in the treasuries in this spot. I think that they could ultimately resolve up, but for now, they look a little stuck here. And it looks like I'm not seeing a ton of movement in the yield curve, but it looks like slightly flattening. Did we ever get... I never saw what those PCE numbers were. Or advanced price index. 6 versus 5.4. Oh, it does look like the evening is kind of calmed down, so I should make sure that I got my robot going here. Hold on.
Just taking a look through the US GDP report for the second quarter, the increase in real GDP in the second quarter reflected increases in personal consumption expenditures, non-residential fixed investments, exports, and state and local government spending that were partly offset by decreases in private inventory investment, residential fixed investment, and federal government spending. Imports, which are a subtraction in the calculator of GDP, increased.
So the 5 years, so even though we saw a pretty good buying coming into the 10-year off of all that, the 5-year hit back pretty aggressively. So that could just be spreading going on. I think what they want to do is they want to do a bull flattener. Though it may just turn around and steepen on us. I don't know whether it's been flattening or steepening lately. It's kind of been a little difficult for me to sort out sometimes. I guess I gotta keep in mind that the open price was where this move started, huh? The hole was bigger than I thought. I really thought there would be way more support in through this 10 to 8 area. Now I'm kind of wondering now if they do push back, it might just slip right back through again. Well, 1731. It's not doing it. Look at that.
So just to add from the GDP report, the increase in business investment reflected increases in equipment led by transportation equipment and intellectual property products led by research and development.
Well, I'm not going to beat myself up too bad if this trade fails, because it was just screwing around on a sim, taking a pretty exorbitant risk that I normally wouldn't do, right? But I'm kind of wondering here what the treasuries might be saying, assuming that they don't just rocket right back up to the top. But I mean, if they actually ended up with rates being slightly higher today, that really makes me wonder. Hold on, I'll be right back. I need to get Kleenex. What happened there? Okay. Well, maybe we'll try it again later. I don't know. You think this is going to flip around? You think that it's just steepening? Because that is quite odd. It does look like, stop run of sorts, like people trying to get out because it's just falling on them for no reason. And like some of the buying pulling out of the way. In fact, why not? Well, there was buyers are holding up somewhat of a resistance here, but they did that at 7.5 too. So I don't know. And look, I was not the only person with that idea. Let's see here. What's Bitcoin doing right now, by the way? Seen a lot on Twitter about it. Nah, it's not really doing anything all that interesting, huh? I am seeing a lot of interest in Bitcoin today on Twitter, though, for some reason. Because the ZB apparently moved the most. And while the treasuries have been doing all of this crazy stuff, the E-mini's just kind of been sitting there. Just kind of chilling. Hmm. Looks like Nassim Taleb is arguing with the Bitcoin people again today, too. Oh man, breakfast is hitting my stomach. It's hitting hard because my stomach was empty. Whew. How are you guys doing over there? I'm hoping that the relatively quiet chat this morning means that you're all in profitable positions, right? Are you familiar with the difference between... I've never seen the word Lamarckism and before ever. What's that? I'm not sure how would Darwinism have played into the debate that we were having the other day. Oh. Oh my gosh, yeah. What was I seeing the other day that oh yes. Okay, so in the Soviet Russia, there was this guy, they were having trouble with crops. And there was this guy that he said, "Oh, I think that if I take crops and I expose them to the cold, that they will pass on the genes to deal with cold onto its children." Not like Darwinism, not like, you know, the ones that survive are the ones that are resistant to cold. No. It's just if we expose them to cold, then their children will be more resistant to cold. So the notion that an organism can pass on to its offspring physical characteristics that the parent organism acquired through use or disuse through its lifetime. So, and he said this because he thought it was more in line with communist ideology. So Stalin really liked that and put him in charge of everything. And none of his ideas worked. And it basically led to more famine and more death and so on and so forth. But he stayed in the position for a long time. Oh, well, you were talking about COVID and the idea of getting the rates to zero, and made me think about evolutionary principles like bottlenecking and stuff and the nature of mutations and how they occur. Oh, well, you know what? To that point, a news story came out yesterday that was very relevant to what we were talking about, right? Because Uzi was saying, well, it looks like the efficacy of the vaccine is declining over time. And let's see if I can still find it. I bet I saw it multiple places, but Zero Hedge was one place I saw it. Here we go. The efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine falls to 84% after 6 months. So in the beginning, it was like 95% effective, right? And they've said it's fallen to 84%. Yeah, well, Uzi says I prefer the term normalizing. Israel's Minister of Health recently found the Pfizer vaccine is only 39% effective at combating Delta, down from 64% according to the earlier Israeli data intended to measure the efficacy against the Delta variant. It's difficult to know. Like, the question is, could the actual effectiveness of the vaccine change that much just based on the virus mutating? Or is it more, as Uzi said, that the vaccine was never quite as effective as they were claiming, and that now that it's being given to more people and we have a larger sample set, we're getting closer to the actual effectiveness of it? How would I determine that? It's really hard to say, right? Yeah, it's interesting. You know what though? The funny thing is that there has been some scientific evidence of I wouldn't call it Lamarckism, but there is some evidence that what happens to you during your life can affect your DNA and can be passed down to your children. And so they're able to find that your ancestors dealt with famine, for instance, from looking at your DNA. Isn't that weird? That like when certain things happen, there are certain enzymes that activate and do stuff to your DNA and modify it. I think it could very quickly fall to 0% effectiveness if it hits the right mutation. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's really the great debate, isn't it? It's kind of funny because we're having this debate, but it's like the government and the health experts don't want to admit that that's the debate that we're having. And I think that the debate that we're having is it really possible to eliminate the virus before it mutates? And I'm of the opinion that you can't. I'm of the opinion that it's going to be around forever and that it's simply not practical. Like I think the issue is that the people on the COVID zero side of the debate, all they're seeing is, but we could do it. It's like, yeah, if everybody was in a completely sealed room.
0.1% July 27.
So remember in New York when they had the lockdown and everything, and all of the people that were catching it, and there was lots of people catching it at the time, and they had been quarantined for like the whole month and they were still catching it. And we're like, maybe it's airborne. Maybe, you know, like, you remember those stories? Like, it seems to me that even if you completely lock things down, and like, people will point to like Australia and New Zealand as to like, well, it works. But the issue with Australia and New Zealand is that it was never really over there. They never had a significant number of cases. Once you already have a significant number of cases like we had in the United States by the time that they started to do global lockdowns, I feel like it's too late. Mutation are oftentimes a slow, steady progression of growth or something, but in other cases, the effect can be so powerful that there is a near immediate sign of change. Yeah. Well, that's where I was saying you got to remember that COVID does not mutate as quickly as the flu. Well, that's interesting. So we started to get a little bit of buying there, and then they pulled the rug out and they're pushing into new lows. Hey, I still can't believe people think that COVID measures work. Well, it would, you know, it's when we're talking about science, you know, one of the things that I don't think that the average person realizes about science is that a lot of proving of a lot of things is a lot more difficult than you realize. You know? Like proving that masks work or don't work is not such a simple thing. Because there's so many other compounding factors. Cool part is you can always move the goalposts. Well, I don't know. Here's the thing, though, is I really feel that with this latest move that the CDC made, where they're re-implementing the mask mandate, I really think that it is doing severe damage to their trust. Like, you just go and watch the press conferences with the news agencies, and asking the questions, and the responses that you get are just like, what the heck? Like, what are you thinking? Yeah, they I don't think anybody really trusts them to be 100% honest with us. So, like, when they come in and they say we need to lock, well, like, some states are already saying what was it? DeSantis said, we don't think it's in line with the science, and we will not require masks. Right? Which in Florida you can get away with because it's always warm there, right? That's one of the things, is that, like, if there was a case, like, if there was a case where there was a state like Florida, but more up in the New York area, okay, a really populous state, but in a colder area that said we're not going to lock down or have masks or anything, would be like a much better test case. Because when you want to come in and say, do masks work or do they not? It's like, you can't just say, well, okay, when a state or a city implemented masks, did it make a difference? Because you also have to factor in how many cases they had at the time, what the weather was like at the time, how old their population is. Like, there's like a trillion things that could affect the number of cases. And many of these appear to be more impactful than whether or not you wear masks. I mean, I suppose that you could say that the idea that wearing masks and social distancing would completely stop the virus in its tracks seems to have been shown to be untrue, right? That doesn't mean that it doesn't help and that it's not a good policy to implement it. I'm leaning towards that it doesn't really do a whole lot, or that the impact that it has is pretty trivial. But I've only seen a few studies on this. There's a lot of drama around those studies, so it's really difficult for a person in my position to really conclusively say if it does or doesn't. Have you considered the nature of the potential exponential growth on the idea that COVID is dangerous? No, that's exactly what I'm saying, Keller. It seems to me like peak COVID fear is long past. People have realized now, or most people have realized now, that it is not a threat to the vast majority of people, and that the worst of it is over, and that many of the things that we've been doing to try and stop it have diminishing returns. And the thing that I think that they're starting to decide now, and whether it's right or wrong, it seems to me like they're also starting to say that the politicians and the bureaucrats at the CDC are not necessarily going to tell me, what is best for me. They're telling me things that are best for them. That's what I think people are starting to say. After a year and a half, I can't emphasize enough how little I care at this point, right? Well, I've seen like a lot of people say every time's only 3 people got 6 as a sort of excuse to not care, but I think they don't realize that 3 becomes 6 and 12 million very quickly. Well, yeah, but again, so here's how I think that this should really be looked at. Like, if you were going to use metrics, see, this is the thing that I was whining about from the very beginning, and it still bothers me greatly that we don't see this metric. dollars spent per year of life saved. Okay. Are you going to go down this whole rabbit hole and then you find out that you're spending $50 million per year of life saved, and you kind of have to say, like, is it really worth it? Like, people aren't very good at dealing with like super large numbers, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and hundreds of millions of people. And so when you put the numbers across hundreds of millions of people, you're like, oh, wow, that's really big. Like, this COVID is killing a lot of people and it's a really serious issue. But then when you actually go and you look at the stats, you actually realize that, oh, more people are dying every day from heart failure or heart disease than they are from COVID, right? We're just not very good at like judging those numbers. But if you were to go in and you were to say, okay, like, what was this person's life expectancy before, and how early did they die, and how much, and then we look at all of the costs of the pandemic, the trillions of dollars that we've spent, and how much money was spent per actual years of life saved. You know, because if it's more than like 100,000, the argument that it's better for the economy to lock down in the long run, and that would eliminate that argument right there, right? And then it's just kind of a question of like, how much is a year of life worth to you, man? I know over 20 people who have had it. Yeah. It's not scary anymore. Well, it really boggles my mind, the people out there that, and there really are people out there that are terrified of getting it. They're just like, oh, anything's better than getting the COVID. No, it's not. Guys, trust. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. For if you are a healthy person, so if you don't have a heart problem, or you're fat, okay, and you're under 70, 60, let's say 60, okay, it's really more like 70 to 80 year olds that are dying, okay, but everybody that's watching this live stream, okay, having coronavirus for a weekend is way better than having to wear those masks for months on end. It was like I had a fever for the weekend and that was it. It was like the most mild infection I've ever had. I have something right now that's like, it's only in my throat, and I'm just getting like white stuff out of my throat, but it's like really sticky. Like, it's really back in there and I can just feel it. It's I think it's almost gone, but it's just there, and like, it just drives me crazy. That's way worse than having COVID. I think. Salt rinse it. Well, I've been clearing it out and stuff. I hate the masks. I truly do. Like, if me having to go to church and wear it for an hour or 2 hours, or like when it was my sister's funeral, wearing the masks through my sister's funeral, that was really funny because it was like right after the mask mandate was put in place, and nobody could do it. Like, even the people that I would see on Facebook preaching about masks and things like that were like taking it off halfway through and stuff. Like, it's really quite irritating. And for me, somebody with ADHD, it's not like I can just put it on and then you forget about it. I don't. It bothers me the whole time. And to me, having to wear that mask every day is way worse than having to get COVID for a weekend. To you, it's not that big of an inconvenience, and you work in a hot kitchen. Man, I would. I don't know how I would deal with that, man. Another thing, like going back to, I feel like that some people are starting to get fed up with the CDC. Like, it used to be a lot of Republicans and very conservative people were already fed up with it, but I'm starting to see a lot of moderates come along, and even some Democrats are like, this is not making sense, right? The kids having to wear the masks at school. There is a lot of parents that are going to be so mad about their kids having to wear masks again. Your wife sold masks for family income. That's like you selling an technical indicator. Well, she did. She made a lot of. It's really shocking to me how much money she made from selling masks. I mean, she spent a lot on materials and everything, and it really wasn't worth the effort that she put in, but she still made a ton of money from it. But that was because it was like I said, like, the science shows that the masks should decrease the spread. It's just, I haven't seen a study that says implementing a mask mandate decreases the spread of coronavirus, which are kind of two different things. It's like things, like in statistics, right? Things that apply to the you can't take the particular to the general and the general to the particular. Anytime science gets politicized, it inevitably stops being real science. You get me thinking about technical indicators now again, because I continue seeing run. Okay, so let me tell you this story. Can I switch to something completely different? So I was thinking about the technical analysis thing, because it's not like a technical indicator can't be useful. It's just, if you go and that's your trading strategy is it crossing this line or whatever, I'm just telling you, you're probably not going to be an effective trader. 99% of retail traders are working with a premise about how the market works that has been empirically proven false, right? That this idea that people have certain types of behaviors and those will show up over and over again at every time frame is absolute nonsense. The behavior of crowds in general is quite random. And every piece of evidence that we have about this thing says that it doesn't work. He says I disagree. And how do you convince people that what they're doing is not a good way to trade? How do you go about doing that? Because I've had a really hard time. I feel like I have a hard time convincing people. Like I'm here talking about it. I think that a lot of you guys understand it, and of course you kind of take things in stride and say, well, okay, yeah, maybe technical indicators aren't that effective, and I have to combine it with things in a larger system, right? But like when I go on Reddit and I'm trying to convince people, like, dude, like just throw the RSI away. It's not helping you. They don't, they 100% believe in it, right? And how do you convince them that they're wrong? Well, I saw this video yesterday on TikTok, and it was about Atlantis. So do you guys remember the Eye of India rechat structure theory about Atlantis? So the theory is that there's this geological formation in Africa that apparently at one time in humans' history was underwater. Like that whole part of the continent was like underwater. And the theory is that Atlantis was built on top of that geological formation, and then, like it sunk into the sea and came out, and that's how Atlantis got destroyed. And there's this guy on YouTube that's made videos about it. Quite a few videos. Actually, we should go and look at that. Let's go and see how much did he do. So anyways, this guy on TikTok who's an archaeologist was talking about Atlantis, and he was explaining why Atlantis was probably just made up by Plato. Which sounds reasonable to me, and I'm going to go along with that. Atlantis was made up. Okay, you're gonna trigger the heck out of Ace. From what I understand from historians and archaeologists, Atlantis was probably just made up by Plato, right? But there's this guy on YouTube that thinks that it was is it Origins Explained? SciShow. Oh, I can't remember what the name of the channel was. Do you guys remember? No, that's not it. I wonder if the videos are no longer there. Too close to the open, but should be long. I'm really wondering. I'm way more interested in what the Treasury is doing here. I probably shouldn't be in a trade. I should probably just be watching it, but or is it because of the auction? So we got some supply coming in on the 7-year. Why this 5K at 05? Yeah, no, let me try and find the video. Surely I will find it. I want to know. I want to know how many views did this guy's, was it Bright? No. Bright Insight, maybe?
There is a bizarre place.
Yes. Yes. Okay. This guy, look at this. 5.5 million views, 2.1 million views, 3.6, 1.2, 1.3 million, 1.5, 6. Oh no, now we're getting into ones that aren't applicable. So let's say this guy got 10 million views. Let's see here. YouTube revenue per 1,000 views, right? YouTube money calculator. Oh, we could do it that way. Channel URL. Good grief. Okay. This guy literally make $300,000 off of these videos. right? Oh my gosh. Anyways, so the point of all that, so there's people were talking about the reshot structure and that it was Atlantis, and this archaeologist was saying, no, it's not, that's ridiculous. And so he made an argument about why it wasn't there, saying there's no archaeological evidence. Well, the guy that's made these videos, he's like covered that, and like one of the things he spends a lot of time talking about is why nobody's ever looked there, because it's like it's a desert and it's hard to get to and all this sort of stuff, right? So this guy on his YouTube channel is not saying that it's there. It's like, it's worth looking. And then you get this archaeologist saying, well, it can't be there because there's no archaeological evidence. And it's like, well, you haven't looked, right? It's really unconvincing argument, because he hadn't even like watched the videos and understood like why people like the idea and find it compelling and this sort of a thing, right? It's like, how do you convince people that it's not there? Like, he could go to the reshot structure and dig around there for a year and then say, well, we didn't find Atlantis, and people would still think it's there. They would start turning it into a conspiracy. Well, actually, they did find Atlantis, but they don't want us to know about the advanced technology. You know? How do you convince them? But then I just look at it and it's like, well, but that argument's not very convincing. So I like this. Oh, I'm going back there. There are lots of folks who take advantage of gullible, especially Christians, who is a fake archaeologist and finds things like chariot wheels in the Dead Sea, the Ark, and the cross. Yeah, but there's a lot of people that take advantage of everybody. This idea that somehow Christians are more gullible than regular people, I think, is silly. The reality is that people in general are gullible. That if you lie to people and you are not bad at it, that you will deceive most people most of the time. But that's just the thing, is that like you just got to realize there's this thing is like, you all want to think, well, I'm not the person that will just reject an idea out of hand because it doesn't conform to my own beliefs. I'm going to investigate and find out whether things are true or not. Bullshit. I'm sorry. Bullshit. Human brain doesn't work that way, folks. Doesn't work that way. And there are things in your life that you just accept because it would be too hard to function otherwise. And this is always a problem for us in trading, right? So you will find yourself, and then afterwards you go, oh, well, I wasn't taking this piece of information seriously enough because it didn't conform to what I already wanted to believe. Yeah, but I could come up with scams for atheists. I'm sure they exist. All you're saying is that targeted fraud makes the fraud more effective. Yeah, it does. You just need to find something pertinent to their interests, right? Well, that's the thing. Like with this Eye of Africa thing, like I'm looking at this and I'm watching this guy on YouTube, and I'm like, dude, like You realize, like, did you see how many people commented on your video that it's the Eye of Africa, that Atlantis is the Eye of Africa? Like, come on, you could go and start a GoFundMe campaign to fund a archaeology trip to the Eye of Africa, and you could probably raise millions of dollars to go and dig for something that we're almost certain isn't there. Like, people with low critical no, I don't think that's so. Wait, I think there's been some research on this. RJ Wheel says, Seth, you don't think Atlantis existed? My understanding from the historians is that Plato probably made it up. Fully adjusted models indicate that older age, lower levels of cognitive function, decreased psychological well-being, and lower literacy in particular may be markers of susceptibility to financial victimization in old age. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So to Uzi saying you don't care about how do you measure critical thinking skills? Apparently, there are tests. He is right. They are kind of... It's hard to be interested in it because it's a conversation I've heard before, right? I think there was some sort of civilization over time and it was legendized. Not just Plato, other scholars in other parts of the world have lost civilization stories. No. Well, that's not what I'm saying. So like, there are two locations in particular that make good candidates for, like, if Atlantis was a legend, where did it come from? And one is in the Mediterranean Sea and one is on the coast of Greece. And they would say, like, these would be things that would have happened, like the one in particular was like there would still be people around during Plato's time that had, like, firsthand experience about it and stuff like that. But no, what the historians are saying, my understanding is that based on when he said it and how he said it and all of those sorts of things, that Plato literally made it up. Like, he wasn't just, like, picking a legend, and no, that it was like he was literally just telling a story and that it was made up. I'm more interested now in how can you prove that you are good at critical thinking? Here, I'm going to go to this. I think that this website is trying to sell me something, but the most effective way to measure critical thinking is to use a validated critical thinking skills test to assess the skills used to solve problems and make decisions, and to use a critical thinking mindset measure to assess the level of a person's consistent internal motivation or willingness to use his or her critical thinking skills when it counts in decision making. Is being bald a hair color? It's you're saying it's not? to go trade now. Oh yeah, the E-mini is going up. My system unfortunately did not take a trade. That's actually really good buying too. Like, well, so I can come back because the issue is, well, we could get a new all-time high. That would be at 16. The issue is I've seen moves like that in the recent past that got me excited and got me long, and then they turned short. I'm not sure that's what's going to happen today. But I don't feel particularly confident buying at like 44.10. Okay, now the Treasury is finally coming back to where it should. Although, you still really got to wonder what was going on there. I think that believing in things without evidence is a sign of a lack of critical thinking skills. Okay, but what do you do about the questions that can't be solved by evidence? Right? There are some questions essential to your life and finding meaning in life that you have to come up with your own answer for, that you're not going to be able to find evidence for, and that you have with whether you realize it or not. And those are the questions that religion is supposed to answer. For example, do you believe that your life has meaning? Keeps you motivated as a person? Yes, because prove that. You say yes because I give it meaning. How is that something with evidence? That it has meaning because you give it meaning. Can you prove that? What evidence do you have to back that idea up? See, you don't think of it in those terms. You just say, I choose to do this X thing. But the reality is that you're creating a belief and enacting that belief through actions without any evidence leading you to that conclusion. It is, in effect, a religious belief of yours. I have evidence for me picking my meaning. How is that? Right? Like existentialism is not something that can be empirically proven. It is a philosophy. It is. It's like saying, do you have evidence for you picking anything, your spouse, your major, your career? 100%. Do you not see now? We have to, for you to function as a person, you have to make decisions based on beliefs without evidence. Otherwise, you would die. He says, I have evidence, but you're not providing that evidence. I know what is in my head. What if I told you that your life doesn't have meaning? So if I contend that your life has no meaning, how would you prove me wrong? Because I don't think you really can. I don't think it's possible to prove that right or wrong. It's philosophical. What if I told you that you didn't pick your spouse? Well, I would say you're wrong, but how would I prove that? It's internal. What that sounds like just another way of saying that you don't have evidence. No, I don't have evidence. Dude, internal is not evidence, right? It's certainly not empirical evidence. It is not something that I can take and show to you and that you can turn around and then verify. It is electrical impulses in your brain that lead to a certain belief that are entirely created just by the way that your neurons are connected potentially. Just because I can't show you what's inside my head, it's like asking for proof that I like chocolate. Well, saying whether you like chocolate or not is not making a fundamental claim about existence, right? So that's not a very good comparison. So they've come back up. They appear to be finding maybe a little bit of a liquidity hole in this 6 to 8 area. The EMA is not backing off. You can prove you like chocolate by eating lots of chocolate, sure. But that's like making a claim about what your future behavior is going to be, not making a claim about existence, right? The question, does your life have meaning, is a claim about existence for which we don't have any empirical evidence to back up. Why am I'm just not going to trade the E-mini. I was seeing the reload there, so it's like it seems like it should be a good trade, but I need to stick to like what I was saying. I'm gonna keep my eye on the treasury here, and maybe my robot will take a trade. I'm a little mad because it would have been a good trade, huh? I wish that it had just taken one, but it never. Well, there was some places, there was some spots, but they got filtered out. See, what am I trying to get at here? I'm trying to say something that's relevant to trading, which is this is the way that the human brain works. It makes beliefs up and then it searches for evidence to confirm it. And the reason it does that is because we don't have the ability to see all evidence all the time. And so in order to act in the world, we need to find why am I keep clicking here? In order to act in the world, we have to do those things. That's why the brain is set up that way. So to come in and say that you're not like that is basically like saying you're not human. And the reason why I think it's an important thing to realize is because if you don't understand that your brain is like that, then it makes you susceptible to those mistakes. Right? The person that comes in and says, I'm really good at critical thinking and I'm not susceptible to internal biases, and that's what makes me such a great trader, is going to come in and he's going to make those mistakes and not know it and not see it and make them over and over and over again. When the reality is we all do it. It's a fundamental part of how our brains work. And it's unavoidable. Because it's like this ego. Like, who has critical thinking skills? As far as I can tell, the only thing that really has an impact on how good your critical thinking skills are is how much you practice them. That's why, like, engineers and computer programmers tend to have pretty good critical thinking skills, because it's like necessary for their daily job, right? So when I go around and I read things on Twitter, what I usually find is like the artsy people just aren't very good at it. You know? You're the one that's saying that. You're saying I never make decisions or beliefs without evidence, and it's not true. You do have beliefs without evidence. We just proved one. You tried to say that that wasn't true, but I think you lost that argument, in my opinion. Okay, so when they came back there was a pretty aggressive comeback. I'm just gonna, because I want to do it. It's a sim order. Doesn't. I'm being too egotistical here. I don't want to take something because I don't want to like prove myself wrong. I think that that's like a okay setup. Let's see what happens. Holding beliefs without evidence shows a lack of CDS. You win every art? Yes, because it's my stream. The thing is I think you are making a claim about what kind of person is good at critical thinking and is not good at critical thinking that we really don't have the evidence to back up, right? Like, okay, there are a great number of very, very intelligent critical thinking people working at CERN that believe in God. Right? And that's why I'm saying you have to realize that the ability to form beliefs about existence and follow through on them without having empirical evidence to justify them is a fundamental part of human existence. Therefore, you can't cite that as a reason for somebody's not a good critical thinker. I don't think that would correlates necessarily to a person's ability to take a specific problem and come out with an effective solution to it, right? They're not correlated as far as I can see. Like there's not a correlation between whether or not you believe in religion and your performance on a critical thinking test. I don't know. Has anybody ever done a study like that? We could go and we could look. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, humans are good at compartmentalizing, that's true. Okay, so we just got another really strong push down, and I would say that kind of a move suggests informed trading, but in this particular context and given recent history, I'm going to say that it doesn't. Those moves have very often been counter to what actually ends up happening, and is probably more likely to just be hedging. So let's see what happens. It is starting to look like, the sort of chart that comes all the way back, though. From a technical analysis perspective, which I admit has no proven efficacy, but with the way that I would read the chart, that pattern doesn't particularly look very good, does it? Yeah, saying humans are good at compartmentalizing, maybe that's a good explanation for why it is. But either way, I think that disproves the claim that that correlates to critical thinking. Because it seems to me like the argument keeps coming back to like, I am fundamentally better than Christians because my belief is more grounded in evidence or something. It's like, well, your non-belief is based on a lack of evidence, but that doesn't mean that you're not still functioning in the world with, that like every other person does. Exactly. No, I think that anytime that you try and come out into this sort of argument that I'm better than other people, you're like really walking on shaky ground.
You have the release of the US pending home sales change month over month. Forecast for 0%.
You can say, I am better than other people at X skill, at which you would have to provide evidence that you actually are. Because we have no evidence to suggest that being an atheist has any correlation to your effectiveness on critical thinking skills. And probably the reality is that the variation within the groups is much wider than the variation between the two groups, showing that there's no real point in equating the two together. I'm just realizing that I'm making such a convoluted argument. Like, I'm not saying that I'm making a convoluted argument like that it's wrong or anything, but it's like, this is not the way that I think most people think about that sort of a thing, right? I think most people think about that sort of a thing like, well, I'm religious and I think I'm better than other people, therefore religious people must be better than other people, Well, the treasuries are doing a little better. You have to rephrase that, Tommy. I don't understand what you're saying. Ooh, there was... Okay, so when that first sweep came through, there was some skipped prices. And where were those skipped prices? I would have liked to have been a little bit lower, but I think we might be okay. I've been noticing that the News Squawk Twitter account has been like saying funny things more often recently. Like he just tweeted a little note from somebody that went and did investigating restaurants across the country, and their finding was that restaurants were short-staffed, missing key menu items, and having taken fairly material menu price increases. And Newsquack says, to be fair, this sounds like my dream job, just going around the country and being a fatty. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I have to apologize for that. I'm just... Why Muslim children are on Muslim thrones? What do you mean by thrones? Hold the boat. Okay, he has a link here for us, so we can look at that link. Keep an eye on this.
Just 5 minutes away now from the top of the hour with the release of the US pending home sales change month on month. Forecast for 0% with a prior read of 8.0%.
You gonna try short? Okay. Oh, okay. The children always have the same faith as the parents. That's a little weird. Okay, so what this comes down to is this. These beliefs that we have about existence that we need to have in order to function, a major component of these, at least as I understand it from, I don't know, I think that this is kind of more evolutionary psychology kind of way, but there is research on this stuff, is what I'm saying. Is that a lot of it is for group cohesiveness, right? So we tend to formulate a large portion of our beliefs on those things when we are young. And the reason for that is because it leads to group cohesiveness. Right. Essentially, you are more likely to survive because you pick up those beliefs from your parents. And that leads to you getting along better with the people in your tribe and functioning better as a unit against adversity. I'm using lots of big words, but it's called indoctrination, sure. But it's a part of how people work. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like it exists for a reason, right? That article seems interesting, but it's not the sort of thing that's like it's not a study or anything. They're just saying, yeah, when you're targeted, that it can be really effective, and we as a society kind of let people get away with it for reasons. Humans need to be in a tribe to survive. Getting kicked out of that tribe for any reason is life-threatening. Yes. Or in the day was life-threatening. The whole issue is that there are parts of our deep part of our psychology that don't function very efficiently in the modern world. Yeah, it's long in. Ouch. I'll read long pages. That's not that long, to be honest. I just can't read it while I'm on stream. Since it's not like a scholarly article per se. I've been spending a lot of time reading it lately, actually. Oh my gosh, I read this one book. Actually, we could look at that, actually, because there was some interesting things about it.
A minute to go now.
But it really rubbed me the wrong way, because so the basic premise of this guy's book was that people tend to read Bollinger Bands wrong. Where is the affinity scam capital of the U.S.? I'm going to bet it's Utah. So the what you're hinting at is that Utah is the affinity scam capital of the United States because Mormons are particularly susceptible to scams. And I'm still saying I think it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Forecast of 0%.
Having critical thinking skills isn't important. Well, I'm not so sure that okay. So when you're talking about like an affinity scam, right? So let's go back to the piece of empirical evidence that we read there a little while ago. Being old, being mentally impaired, or psychologically impaired. Okay, so I would bet that the thing that would most highly correlate to people being vulnerable to affinity scams would be their psychological health. And that could be an explanation for why it's so high in Utah. Now, because we know that in Utah, there's also a high degree of these psychological health issues. So then you'd have to go into why is there such a high degree of those psychological health issues? That one doesn't really fit in line, I think, per se, with what we typically understand about religions, because you would think that the religious people tend to be happier and less prone to depression and things like that. One of the theories out there is that it's the elevation, actually, which is really interesting. They've found some evidence that living at higher elevations is not kind of hurts those kinds of physical health things, right? People on meth aren't happy though. They tend to have very, very poor psychological health, right? Because like you're acting like when you say it like when with the way that you say it, the picture that I get in my head is young guy comes home off of his mission and he is presented with some sort of affinity scam, and this naive young missionary wastes his life savings on a complete nonsense, right? But the reality of what we understand about scams is that really it's some 50-year-old guy that doesn't really have any clue what's going on, doesn't really completely understand the thing that is being presented to him, right? It's the older people that are more susceptible to it, which is like a whole big thing. Like, how do you know that when you're 50, 60 years old, that you're not, when you're mental acuity declines, that you might not become susceptible to those sorts of things, right? My understanding, a big thing that correlates with that is like exercise, rigorous physical exercise is the most significant factor in terms of fighting against mental decline as you get older, right? No, he gets roped into selling door to door for pest control. What's wrong with selling door to door for pest control? I mean, you probably don't make very much money, but what, you're calling it a scam? Is door to door pest control a more significant business in Utah than in other states? Are there more door to door pest control salesmen in Utah than other states? Oh, okay. You're going. I don't know. It's the older folks that get scammed. Yes, exactly. So the thing is that in Utah, especially 50 years ago, was really quite rural, right? That's really more of a function of how far out in the middle of nowhere we are compared to everything else, right? You know, once you get out of Salt Lake City to another major city like Denver, or I guess Denver is really the closest. That's like a full day's drive, right? And so you don't have a lot of people in Utah until recently, until the younger generations that are like engineers, for instance, right? So it's an interesting theory. I guess I shouldn't be presenting it like these are the reasons why. I'm just presenting a couple of theories based off of evidence that we have about who is susceptible to fraud and what we know about Utah that might be better explanations than that they're Mormons. And maybe you could do a study about that and find out which factors are more important. Well, I tell you what, man, this e-mini is being awfully fickle right now, isn't it?
The US pending home sales report for June 2021 is available on the Financial Juice newsfeed.
There are more door-to-door salesmen in Utah than any other place? Let's look that up. Can you prove that? You might be right. Yeah, the older folks, especially with low critical thinking skills. I just like believing it. Yeah, but I'm saying the reason why a lot of the older folk in Utah don't have very high critical thinking skills is because they did jobs 50 years ago in Utah that they didn't really need that. I'm not sure what I would need to search for to find out what states have the most. I would agree with that. Geneva Steel or the coal mines. Well, those weren't necessarily the largest employers 50 years ago, right? Or like, let's not say 50 years ago. Let's say 60 years ago. I guess, so here's how I think I would disprove this claim. We would look at scams only amongst LDS members in Utah over time, to see if there's a change in how susceptible Mormons are to scams. And if my theory is correct, then because so many Mormons in Utah are moving over into the tech sector where critical thinking skills are necessary and have to be developed, the incidence of fraud victims in Mormon fraud victims in Utah should decline significantly over the next 30 years. And that would be the test that I would put up for my theory. I'm trying to think though what were like the most employed industries in 1960. I'm not sure. And I really don't. You know, the only door-to-door salesman that's ever come to my house is those freaking annoying solar panel people. Holy crap. I so dislike those guys because I know what, like, all of the tax credits and all of the things that there are for. My parents have a really amazing solar array, okay, because they have this hill in the back of their yard that they couldn't do anything, so they built a huge solar array with the battery backup and everything, okay. So like, I know what the deal is, and they will, like, immediately start out with things that are just not very they're deceptive. Like, they make it sound like they're from the power company when they're not. It's so, and as soon as, you know, I would be like, okay, like, I'm not doing anything. I'd love to talk to you about it, even though I have no plans to do it, because I don't really have anywhere to put them. I don't really have enough room on my roof for solar panels because my roof is just too split up. But, yeah, they immediately start out with, like, you know, high pressure sales tactics, dishonest things, and it's like, I don't want to talk. Go away. Yeah, they do try and give the impression they're from the power company. Many of them wear a vest and all. Yeah, it's just this. Am I wrong to do that? So let me tell you another story. I frequently get contacted by people looking to do promotions on the channel. The vast majority of them I turn down, especially since it's always like we trade Forex and things like that. So it's always for exchanges that are dubious and things that I would never recommend to my channel, right? And one of the things that was presented to me was for cryptocurrency staking. And I told them, well, I don't promote cryptocurrency investments, you know, essentially. And even though I do promotions, I don't, you know, I'm not going to recommend an investment in something cryptocurrency related. And so they're like, oh, okay, that's great. So why don't we set up an appointment to talk about it and yada, yada, yada. It's like, no. Like, because you're not telling me, like, I asked directly, like, what exactly is it that you want me to promote specifically? Because if it's like a trading tool, then that's one thing. But if it's a cryptocurrency investment, then no, thank you. And they didn't, and I asked them a direct question in the email and they didn't answer it. They just said, oh, that's great. Well, could you meet at this time? I'd never responded back to them. I was like, okay, you're trying to pull the bullshit. I'm not gonna play. I kind of think back on like, well, was that the right thing to do? But I just can't. I just don't. I'm not gonna put up with that stuff. You know, as soon as I can tell somebody's trying to manipulate me, I'm like, mm, been working on a robot with somebody in there saying something in PMs that doesn't make sense to me. I'm really confused what they mean. Please don't say treasuries. Well, so for you, Ace, I think probably the best instrument for your strategy at the moment would probably be gold, right? Now, whether gold is going to continue trending up or not, it's uncertain. But the trendiest thing today has been gold. The treasury markets, I do have reason to believe that they could move back up. But the way that they behave would probably be really troublesome for your strategy. Unless you like really switched some things up about it. Because you would get this, it crossing the moving average or whatever it is that you're looking at now over and over and over and over again, right? Like it would touch it every bar for like 40 minutes and not actually move anywhere. Gold is on the December contracts? Yeah, the gold is in December. And there's a micro gold. I would do the micro gold, of course. But, well, I guess it depends on how much you want to size it. But there is a micro gold. This price doesn't seem correct. 1832. No, that's it. Yeah. 1832.9 right now, actually, is what I show. You might not actually get the full data. You have to pay for the bundle, right? And you might only be paying for indexes, basically. Is that per pound? It's like ounce, right? Let's look at the Contract specifications. Per troy ounce. And I forget, what is a troy ounce? A troy ounce is a used of measurement for precious metals. 1 troy ounce is equal to 31 grams. That is spendy for a pretty much worthless hunk of metal. Well, some people think it's really valuable for some reason. What's actually really interesting in Nassim Taleb's Black Paper, he talks about why gold can become an effective medium of exchange, and Bitcoin has problems. I think his primary argument being that Bitcoin requires you to continually invest energy into it in order for it to work, whereas gold, you don't have to do anything. It sits there, it lasts forever, it doesn't degrade over time or anything like that. And that was what made it an effective medium of exchange. It's really interesting.
At 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, if the US EIA natural gas change BCF forecast 42 billion, previous 49 billion.
It's weird how humans like shiny things. Wow, but this one's thing. It wasn't just because it's shiny, right? The fact that so like copper, for instance. No, sorry, not copper. Bronze. Is it bronze? Like, you know, it turns gray, you know, when it's exposed to the air, right? Gold doesn't do that. So you can make these bars and they will literally, and bury them in the ground, and they will literally come out and look exactly like when you put them in there 1,000 years ago or whatever. And it can just sit there. And that was what made it an effective medium of exchange. And then the fact that it's very rare. Not if they can't even find them. Right. Oh, I was just thinking, like, are you, have you thought about the micro treasury futures in August at all? Because I think that they're going to be interesting to trade, but the issue is that there's a lot of mean reversion behavior in treasuries. Like, there's money to be made from them mean reverting. And I'm kind of even talking on different time frames. Like one of the things that you can do is you can look at the forwards, because forwards tend to overestimate the amount that rates can move within that amount of time. So you can look at the forwards and say that they're out of line and make a bet that they will revert back to their historical average. And that's a pretty high probability trade. right? But that's more of a swing. And you can kind of do the same sort of a thing with the yield curve. And then because of that mean reverting behavior, you just get this, this kind of mean reverting behavior in the treasury overall, right? Like what we've had today. There was a big move up. It came all the way down, big move down. And then it came back and we're pretty close to where we started at. And then you get these little zipper things where it trades into like a 4-tick range for like an hour. The treasury that I like is the 10-year, but understand that the micro treasury futures are going to be different, right? They'll be moving in the opposite direction and they'll move twice as much. But ZN is the one that I look at. Oh man, so I said something earlier and then we started arguing about other stuff, so I didn't get into it, but yeah, ZN. I just read something in Jigsaw that really caught my ear. Okay. Most of our energy this year has been focused on the new development center. Historically, we've been using a work-from-home model, but it's just not optimal for software development teams. We've decided to bite the bullet, found someone to run the new team, and they are now on their first major development project, which should be done mid-August with the release in September. I can't tell you what's in that release or what accompanies it. I can say it's geared towards shorter-term trading, and the original intent was to replace one of the courses we recently lost. Yes, just like losing your car keys. He's not talking about the Gary Norton thing yet, is he?
Summary of the US EIA natural gas change BCF forecast.
Because Gary Norton has his own website now and everything? Looking at ZN makes me want to lay down and take a nap. What do you love about it? So you have to look at the order flow. That's the thing. So like, let me show it to you this way. I'm pull up the chart here. And looking at total depth, for instance. Okay. So on an individual basis, the price doesn't change very much. But what you can do is you can look at the inside bid and offer, and those change a lot. And those are, oh yeah, sorry. Wrong screen. Okay. I have the Vista chart open here, right? So it's showing you that down here is the imbalance between the inside bid and the inside ask. So price might not change, but these numbers inside here are changing, and you can watch those and make readings on them, because really what you're trying to do is trying to find a situation where you can get an easy fill, hopefully without having inverse excursion against you, right? Like if I wanted to buy, which I could do right now, I don't have a reason to believe that it would work out, but I'm much more likely to get filled being 1,600 in line than I would be 3,500 in line, right? So I could put a buy in here in the hopes that I get filled. And you'll see like orders will pull and stuff. So like 500, yeah, I'm pretty good chance that I could hit into that. And then I would have a winner and I could hit back into it when it ticks up like that, right? And you're going to see this price is going to go back and forth a lot. But sometimes what you'll find is that this 08 half will do it too. Like that 3,387 will just like cancel. And all of a sudden there's only 1,000 contracts on there. And then that ticks up too, right? And you can also look at these correlated instruments. You can say, well, look, the 5-year and the 30-year, since I last reset it, are sitting at even, but the 10-year is one tick down. That means I should be able to buy this. And if I think we're trending up, I can buy this. And then if it doesn't work out, I should be able to hit back into it at break even, right? So you can play the queue. And what's interesting is watching the inside numbers change, because the price changes don't happen as much. But with the micro treasury futures, they will move a little bit more. There will be a lot more wiggle to them. So you don't trade ZN off the chart, but rather use the DOM. Yeah, I'm primarily watching the DOM, and I only look back at the charts that I have over here, primarily to tell me what direction the spreads are going, and to remember what happened. So I can go, for a while there it was stuck. Like, what was the price before the open? Okay, it was 08.5. And then afterwards we got stuck at 07. We're still kind of in that area.
1 minute remaining.
So now the Treasury yield futures are probably going to be a little bit of a different beast. I mean, I think we should still be able to read the order flow, and our position in the queue is still going to matter. I don't know how liquid they're going to be, but having an instrument where there's a lot of contracts on here like that can be really advantageous in certain situations, Like after a really big piece of news, like the non-farms payroll number, right? The E-mini just moves so fast that you can't even, you click on something and you could almost be immediately stopped out, right? Whereas here on the treasuries,
10 seconds.
A comparative move, like if I'm willing to risk $200 to go up 4 ticks, it takes a little bit of time to do that usually. And so even if it's moving really fast, like it has at times today,
36 billion,
it's still a lot more
that's lower than
possible
the
for you
forecast
to
of 42
take
billion.
entries over here than it is over here.
That's a draw on the forecast of 42 billion.
Oh, why do I have that on? I'm so sorry. So having a really liquid instrument kind of gives you a good, plus it's, over here in the E-mini, you could get a little sell and it seems like significant, but then in the larger picture of things, it really doesn't matter and you wouldn't really know it until later. Whereas here in the 10-year, you can't get that sort of thing. Like something significant has to happen for it to move. So you can read a lot more into when it does move, right? I just don't know if it's my cup of tea. Yeah. So, the combination of correlated instruments and the ability to play the queue gives you opportunities where you can take one tick and win 70% of the time if you get good at it. How does the spread? You mean my spread indicator? Are you talking about which one are you talking about, Askar? You got ask, bid, max delta, min, and total volume. Are you talking about? You're not talking about my indicators, are you? Oh man, look, that came completely back again. They're still stuck in the hole, I guess. Yeah, you probably could have gone short there. Like, you might have been able to say, well, that's a good amount of contracts trading into 07.5. I want to sell it there, and then you could be out now at 06. Since I don't trust them, I will go long. I'm kind of starting to wonder if it's ever actually going to move. Oh, okay. I see it on your... You're talking about these ones? Yeah, you could do like one tick. Like, the thing is if you can take one tick and make it 60% of the time, 70% of the time, like, that's super reliable, right? What's the commission? Well, it depends, but I think for you it's probably going to be like 250 And you make $15 per tick, so it's like $14 trade. But then the thing is that you can size up much more easily, right? Like you could trade a 100 lot over here in the treasury and nobody would notice. So, and of course you could go for 2 to 4 ticks. You know, when I was really scalping it, I was usually going for 4. I was like taking 2 ticks risk and going for 4, but you can also do it in the ZB because the ZB moves around a little bit more. But I wouldn't worry so much about trading it as it is just noticing that it doesn't move the same way the S&P 500 does, right? And then figuring that stuff out when the micro treasuries come out. It's a data hog for sure. Oh, that's interesting. Well, with all of those things that you just added to it, probably, yeah. When are you going to build a new computer? Probably doesn't bother him, but if it was me, that would drive me crazy. Trying to work with a computer slow like that. You know, my algorithm not taking a trade today, should I let that bother me? And I'm thinking I could take a discretionary trade in the micros, but our i5 pros, yeah, that would be fine. So I'm like thinking, oh, well, I could try taking one in the E-mini, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence in it moving a whole lot right now. Well, that's kind of interesting that they are only getting 2,500 to hit into 06 half and it hasn't cleared. That could have something to do with the 7-year auction today. So that's another thing that you can do, Ace, is like the tendency is going into an auction, which is going to be at 11 o'clock today, that the treasuries will be under a little bit of pressure. And then after the auction, their tendency is to rise. And there are empirical studies out there proving this. So you think you're done for the day? I wish this one that I had taken that I did sit in that forever, but it did work out. I wish that I had taken that on the combine with a micro contract. But it's okay. Took a winner yesterday. Nothing today. Hopefully take something tomorrow. What do we got tomorrow? We have news tomorrow too, right? Yeah, core PCE, personal income, personal spending, Chicago PMI. Ooh. Whatever happened with that blowout day? Oh, you mean the day where we made the execution mistake? Yeah, I just reset it. So it really sucked because I reset it, right? And then I had a day where I had 2 losses, and I had another day where I had 2 losses, and then we've come back. So I think that the combine is down 900 right now. What does reset mean? So basically it means that you completely restart the combine. They just put you back to 0. They reset all your progress. Is basically a way for them to get a little bit more money out of you. But they said you can reset it as many times as you want, and we'll just give you a free code. So I said, okay, we'll reset it one more time because that was a mistake. And then we went through a drawdown. So hopefully it does well next week, because it can't afford many more days like that. Are you sure? Well, it's not. They're paying me to do it, Ace. I mean, normally it'd be $150. Is it worth it? If you pass. This one was kind of a little bit more of a yellow. It's like, I have a strategy that it's possible for it to pass, but I'm not confident that it's going to do it every month. Yeah, they're paying me to do it. They're doing a sponsored video. So in the sponsored video, I'm going to relate my experience with this combine. And yeah. Preferably that I pass the combine, and then I can go and I can say my robot passed the combine, and everybody will want to watch it because of that, right? He says, oh, okay, so it's not the usual pay to play thing. Yeah, exactly. Video challenge. You know what we could do is if the robot fails, we could just give it to you. We could say, okay, let's see if Ace can pass a combine. Basically, you have to make 1750 before you lose 1500. Does that make sense? There's more rules, but like you can't lose more than 500 in a day, and your largest winner can't be more than 30% of the final portfolio value. Every day is a combine for me. Yeah, like one of the things that was really frustrating was that we had that execution mistake, and then I turned around and I took a trade on my live account that if I had taken on the combine account would have been equal to the combine target all on its own. But the largest winner can't be more than 30% of the portfolio, so it wouldn't help per se, but yeah. I know you killed it for, yeah, that one was really great. I was really hoping that I was going to get some other opportunities like that this week. And I did try 1 or 2 on the live account, and they just didn't really turn, so I just closed them. So I was a little disappointed. I mean, there was some periods where we could have gotten an equal runner, but they weren't the situation like that one. That one was a situation where like I was really confident of where it was going to go. Yeah, I keep not taking the 2 points when I should. Well, the thing is that we got pretty good upside movement today, right? It's just that, like, after the initial move on the open, it's been pretty choppy, hasn't it? This is where I keep talking about when I say I really hope that things don't turn into 2017 again. Yeah, it's crucial on a choppy day, yeah. Even 2 points would be hard to get in some of this action, though. I mean, I did 4 points and I had to wait. How long did I have to sit in that for? 40 minutes to get 4 points. I see those 2 points and I wanted to go 20 points, so I moved my targets on. Yeah. Well, it could be worse. It could be like this here in the treasury where you've been in something for almost 2 hours and it's still at break even. That's okay. I look at it like 200 an hour. Yeah. What were our VIX targets today? Because we're like severely underperforming even those, aren't we? Yeah. Upside target is 26. So a whole nother 10 points. Well, we're outside of the reversal time period, so we may get a continuation up. It may wait until after the London close. 4 points, 40 minutes, that is plumber money. The thing is I don't really care about how much I make from it. I care about how well I traded it, you know? Like the metric that I look at is like ticks made per contract. That's kind of the metric that I look at. So, you know, like if I come in and I took a ton of trades, but I only made one tick per contract, then that says to me, okay, like that's not bad because you did market making correctly, but you didn't actually have an edge or an advantage. You didn't make excess profits. What do you want to fight about tomorrow? I need to get back to, we only should fight when it's something that is going to help people, right? When hearing the argument helps them. Helps them understand more about politics. Helps them understand more about themselves or trading. Oh man, remember I was getting into something and then I was like, it totally spaced what I was doing? You got 5 minutes left. One day. The basic gist of this book was he was saying people read Bollinger Bands wrong. and he makes a good point on this one thing, which is that, like, if I come in here and I add a Bollinger Band, and he was saying 1.25 and a really big period, like 200. Okay. And he's saying when things get crazy, they should come back to the mean. So he was saying we all think of the mean as like the normal, like where it should tend to be. But he's saying, no, that's not the case at all. We revert to the mean when there's uncertainty. And when everybody's expectations are alive, we tend to be one standard deviation above the mean. Do you see that? And so his contention is that you should just, when their expectations are aligned, you should just buy these, basically. It was like he had some good insights in there, but then, like, especially when he started to talk about how to do short-term entries and things like that, I was just like, this is like nonsense. And the thing is he didn't really prove any, like, he was acting like this is all very empirical and evidence-based and everything, but it was just showing a bunch of freaking charts, and he didn't actually do any stats. Drove me crazy. Do redheads have souls? I'm not sure about that one. I'm pretty sure that they still souls. There's a Futures IO website, and there are lots of open coded indicators for members. If you remember, did you see any good out there? Yeah, so I have the Futures IO membership, and I've downloaded a lot of indicators from it. I use them for, I used one of the indicators I found there for volume profile. I'd say that a lot of them you can find other places as well. So I wouldn't buy it just for that, but I do think that the $80 membership or whatever that you pay is a good value. Lots of places to find free indicators. See, there's this one spot here around 44.12. Then I'm wondering why, maybe my bot should have taken a trade there. Like, it's getting a lot of high imbalances. It's just that neither of the trend filters are true. My opinion about IO is they tend to whine a lot. I don't know. Like, they've had a history of, like, some really good information being there, but the vast majority of the content that I see there just seems like noise these days. Maybe you should introduce a time slot. Well, for this discretionary trade, I think I'm gonna try and hold it until the auction. But the issue here is that I was talking about is in my automated strategy. I only want to run it during this time period, and it should be taking a trade every day, hopefully, right? But you can see here in this particular instance that there was a few situations where it should have tried to take a trade. Oh, right. So if these are both, the book and the trend are also in line, then it will take a trade. And you can see it never happened. But it was seeing that the imbalance was long through this whole time. So it was like, if I was less stingy, it would have taken a trade. Like, what if I didn't care about the trend and I only did the book? Well, then it would never have happened because the book was always false. So maybe if I only did it for the trend, then maybe it would have taken one. I don't know. But then that's where it's like 52, 55% win rate. And it's when you add the book that it seems to get really high win rates. So I guess it just didn't take one. The only reason why it matters is because the combine you have to have traded for 15 days. But probably if we even get anywhere close to the target in the next month, it will have traded 15 days, right? So I should not worry about it so much. Oh, look, the E-mini's finally taken a little bit stronger of a run up there now. So maybe they will make it to the 26 before 9:30. This one, that decline was like way worse than just the standard deviations, huh? I wonder though, if you come in and say, well, how would you do it? Go short under here. And then when it comes back up to here, you don't go long until you're to here. But when do you take profits? Oh no, Lucy Lou says she was verbally attacked by Charlie Angel's co-star Bill Murray. Huh. It's going to be interesting to sort out because people really, really like Bill Murray. Well, anyways, I guess it's time for me to get going. Another market rally off disappointing data. And that's what that one is. You know what? I kind of called that one though at the beginning, didn't I? Like, I was not seeing the E-mini moving or anything, so I wasn't trying to take a trade, but I was kind of saying, was what we just got really actually bearish because free money printer? Well, they bought it, so. All right, guys. Well, I don't think we have it. I feel like that was forgetting something, but I don't know. But it's time for me to get going. Super good interview. Hey, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Stay profitable.